Which propaganda effort was so successful, people still believe it today? That teeth are supposed to be perfectly white. Teeth are supposed to be off-white. Think of teeth like skin. Skin comes in different shades, just like teeth. At least that's what my dentist told me while he was checking my prostate. Many Korean people believe that fans can cause death. Even my mother, who moved to America in her mid-teens, still prohibits me from leaving a fan on overnight for fear of death. There is a conspiracy theory that the South Korean government spread this myth as propaganda to prevent energy overusage, but its origins are unknown. It's strange that many Koreans believe this myth considering it is one of the most technologically advanced countries. Carrots make your vision better. This rumor was started in WW2 to hide the invention of radar. The public was told that Allied pilots found the German bombers during the Blitz because they had good eyesight because they ate their carrots, but in reality it was that the British had an early radar system in place that they did not want the Germans to find out about and bomb. That Napoleon Bonaparte was short. He was 5 feet and 7 inches tall, which might be a little bit on the shorter side by modern standards, but it was around the average height for people back then. The idea that he was short actually came from a British propaganda campaign to mock him. That big curvy line of toothpaste with a Dairy Queen curl we've seen in every toothpaste ad. You don't need more than a pea-sized smear of paste on your brush. Columbus was the only person who believed the world was round. Literally everyone who could read knew that the Earth was round. Nobody thought Columbus would fall off the edge. They thought his crew would starve to death before reaching the East Indies, and he totally would have. Sugar companies paid the media to say that fat made you fat. I mean, all food in extreme amounts will put you on the heavy side, but sugar is the true villain here. Diamonds as a symbol of eternal love. Apparently in the 80s KFC ran a Christmas-themed ad in Japan, and to this day the Japanese eat KFC on Christmas. That if you ask if someone is a cop, if they are a cop, they legally are required to say yes they are. Of course they aren't required to, that defeats the entire purpose of working undercover. When Edward Bernays, the father of public relations, literally renamed propaganda that we want people to think is not bad to public relations and advertising, and he literally admitted it in a book he made called Propaganda. Propaganda is, quite literally, just media that is attempting to persuade you. It might be honest or dishonest, but, no matter what, it is still propaganda. That touching a baby bird will make its mother reject it. Lies. Put the baby back in the nest if you can. That the old woman who sued McDonald's over burning herself with her coffee was just money hungry. For clarity, an elderly woman was a passenger in a car, pulled over in the lot to add sugar after getting a coffee and it spilled all over her lap. It burned her really bad and she just set out to get McDonald's to pay her hospital bills. They served the coffee way too hot. They ended up launching this whole PR campaign where they smeared this poor lady, even taking out spots in local papers over how silly and money-hungry she was. Comedians, musicians, and radio hosts made fun of her and made her out to be money-hungry instead of a victim. Knuckle cracking gives you arthritis. If it did, I would make a living being the overly dramatic old white person in infomercials that can't pick up a bottle. And I'm only 31. The myth that Spartans threw unhealthy babies off mountains, this was Athenian propaganda. That fat is unhealthy, the nutrient that is, not actually being fat. Absinthe makes you hallucinate was propaganda because it was hurting the wine industry. That turning the light on in the back seat of the car is illegal. MSG will kill you and is horrible to ingest. I'm allergic to MSG. Really, it is delicious and your body produces it naturally while breaking down regular salt. Some people do have sodium issues, and it may not be good for them. But that's a tiny micro percentage of people. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, serving it up Gary's way. People still believe dogs don't see in color, when in fact they do. They see less of it than humans do, but they most definitely see in color. Camels don't store water in their humps. They store fat in their humps. Autism and vaccines. The original guy wanted to advertise his own vaccine but did not disclose this when he published a hit piece on the mainstream vaccine at the time, in a reputable journal. His alternative vaccine failed, his paper was bashed and ultimately retracted, yet people smart enough to work at Google don't vaccinate their kids. The war on drugs. prematurely illegalized drugs we didn't understand and hadn't had the chance to do a lot of research on, psychedelics and weed, mainly, and created a black hole of misinformation and mistrust by the public, as well as removed funding for drugs that now, thanks to private funding, we're realizing can have hugely positive effects when dealing with mental health. That a man should spend 2 months' salary for his future wife's wedding ring, which absolutely must be a diamond. Screw that, I spent a total of $150 for my wife's ring and she fucking loves it, and it's a sapphire. Diamonds are no more precious than any other precious gem, and manufactured gems are way easier to come by, are more perfect, and so much cheaper. As long as it's an actual ruby, sapphire, emerald, etc., it will be just as good as one dug out of the ground. Fake ones are good for a teen gift or just friends kind of gift, but they'll shatter pretty easy compared to the real thing. That you only use 10% of your brain. In reality, you use pretty much all your brain capacity, so neuroscience has proven quite thoroughly. The McDonald's hot coffee smear campaign to hide the lawsuit. Lie detector tests are accurate. They're junk science at best. People, when the inventor of the device and procedures used is on record saying it's crap, we should probably listen. Looking at you, Florida, for allowing LD test results as evidence in court. I am from Germany and some of my grandparents still believe the stuff they were told about Jews by the Nazis. Like when a Jewish person dies on a Christian holiday they get hung behind the door and everyone who comes in has to spit on him. It's some vile stuff. I can't believe how they were spoon-fed with this in their early years. That monosodium glutamate, MSG, is harmful. If such an allergy were ever possible, it has never been proven, you'd literally die, because it means you're either allergic to sodium, or glutamate, which are in almost every single food or drink known to man. That Listerine invented the term, halitosis, for bad breath. They didn't. It predates them by decades. It's just something that sounds nice to say because you get to attack a big corporation. Engagement rings are required for marriage. The lie that nuclear power is terrible. It is worse than renewables, however, instead of chucking huge quantities of dangerous waste into the air like a coal power plant, it can all be contained, and 95% can be reprocessed into new fuel. In the 60s and 70s, a lot of oil giants used advertising to link its reputation to the very real danger of nuclear weapons, and if this hadn't have happened, global warming would have been much less of an issue. Very few people realize that coal power actually causes more deaths per megawatt than nuclear power due to nitrous oxide emissions, even when Chernobyl is included in the statistics. Nestle done a smear campaign saying formula feeding is best. They mainly done it in third world countries. Nestle owns majority of formula companies, so they got rich and uneducated third world counties suffered as they would rather use this healthier option, but made it with dirty water, meaning children died, which wasn't needed as most have no issue making breast milk. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and that cereal, toast, sugary things are part of a balanced breakfast. Know plenty of people who function perfectly without eating anything for breakfast. The Armenian genocide never happened. My Turkish friends still believe this. If you masturbate you will go blind. That a 4-year college education is the only way you'll succeed in life. Drinking fountains are unhealthy. The bottled beverage industry commissioned and publicized a series of studies in the early 1990s when they decided to get into the bottled water business. The problem was that their largest competitor was free and available in schools, parks, and public buildings everywhere. Anyone who took even a semester of biology knows that if you walk around and swab and culture anything, you'll find that it's covered in bacteria. That's ecology on planet Earth. Sort by controversial and grab some popcorn, folks. The idea that fluoridated drinking water was dangerous was started by the USSR. The belief that HIV was created by the US government was also started by the USSR, but that one's not nearly as popular today. Nixon's drug campaign. That fat is the thing to avoid in foods, taking away the spotlight from sugar. That diamonds are worth anything. That GMOs are bad. Newsflash, your orange carrots are GMO. Most of the food you eat is GMO. Without it, we couldn't sustain society as it is now. That you need to eat 3 or more large meals per day to be happy and healthy. And that a sugary breakfast is by far the most important part of that day. That dandelions are weeds. I recently discovered that these pretty yellow flowers were reclassified as weeds because of lawn culture and some successful marketing by herbicide companies. Dandelions have been used in food and medicine for centuries. That you're not fully clean until you're zestfully clean. Holy shit, whatever happened to zest? Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Kellogg marketing campaign. That vaccines do more harm than good. Fairness cream racism in India. People actually believe that beauty lies in the color of the skin. Fairness creams are a billion-dollar industry in India. Corporate anti-workers union propaganda. People actually believe that unionizing would be against their best interests. That Wyoming exists. The word jaywalking, and the propaganda campaign around it, was invented by car companies to create the idea that streets were for cars and people who get hit by them are idiots. It worked smashingly. The Red Scare was extremely effective. That Taco Bell sells grade D meat, or that their ground beef is equivalent to dog food. In the last few years, Taco Bell has quickly become one of the healthiest fast food chains, being one of the first to completely ban artificial ingredients. The comparison to dog food is ridiculous, as most commercial dog foods contain protein meal byproduct composed of the leftover and diseased parts of old, dying animals. In North America at least, bottled water is safer to drink than tap water. That the U.S. was founded as a Christian country. Most of the founding fathers were deists. Just read Thomas Paine's The Age of Reason to see what he thought of Christianity. The First Amendment doesn't exist just for the sake of Christians.